Most of the folks watching get it. Most of the American people get it. 60, 70%, it's getting into that range. But there's still the holdouts who go, I don't get it. There's snow in the winter. So what is the most compelling evidence that you would present to them if you had 1 minute, 2 minutes with them to convince them that it's actually happening?
Well, every night on the TV news now is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation, and all you really need to do is to connect the dots, even if the mainstream media doesn't want to do it for you. The hottest year ever measured with instruments was last year. The second hottest was the year before that. The third hottest the year before that. It's really overwhelming now. And just in the last 7 years, the U.S. has had 11 once-in-a-thousand-year events. And that pattern is showing up all over the world. The scientists were right 10 years ago when they projected what was due for us. And because they were right, they even lowballed it a little bit, to tell you the truth, because they're culturally conservative. That should make us all pay careful attention to what they're saying would happen in the future if we did not get this under control.
One more thing on the skeptics. They'll say, I see the big storms, but come on, when I was a kid, we had storms too. So you say connect the dots, but it's storms, we had storms. What do you mean connect the dots?
Well, the persistent levels of denial among a smaller and smaller minority didn't occur in a vacuum. In Tennessee, there's an old saying, if you see a turtle on top of a fence post, you can be pretty sure it didn't get there by itself. And these levels of denial didn't occur by themselves. The large carbon polluters, the Koch brothers, ExxonMobil, and some others, have spent huge amounts of money, over $1 billion, in using the playbook that was written by the tobacco companies years ago. You'll remember when the doctors connected smoking cigarettes to lung cancer and other diseases of the lung and heart. The tobacco companies hired actors and dressed them up as doctors, put them in front of cameras to say in TV ads all over the airwaves, hi, I'm a doctor. You don't have to worry about any of these problems. And 100 million people died during the 40 years that they delayed the truth that was inconvenient for them. Well, the carbon polluters have hired the same PR firms. There's an amazing book called The Merchants of Doubt that tells this story, documents it thoroughly. They have used the same tactics, and they've used it also to divide Americans by labeling it kind of a partisan issue when it really isn't. It has nothing to do with partisanship. But they have tried to create this climate denial in order to squeeze more profits out of their business plans, which rely on being able to continue to use the sky as an open sewer for 110 million tons of man-made global warming pollution every day. The cumulative amount of man-made global warming pollution that's up there now traps as much extra heat energy in the atmosphere as would be released by 400,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every day. Now, it's a big planet, but that's an enormous amount of energy, and that's why the temperatures are going up. Most of that heat energy is going into the oceans, by the way, and that's disrupting the water cycle by loading a lot more water vapor coming off the oceans into the sky. The atmospheric rivers take it over the land, and that's why we have these so-called rain bombs now with these record downpours and mudslides and floods. And then between the downpours, the extra heat also makes the droughts start more quickly and go deeper and last longer. And of course, it's melting the ice, and that's why you have sunny day flooding in Miami and Galveston and Norfolk and Fort Lauderdale and Annapolis and worse still in Bangladesh and the Maldives, and I won't go on with the list. But we are largely a coastal species, and the threat of losing coastal towns and cities all over the world is one of many of these problems. And of course, then, I don't want to belabor this, but think about the Zika virus and the other tropical diseases that were never known in this country before. And yes, air travel's had something to do with spreading it, but the climate changes have changed the areas where these diseases take root and become endemic. And when doctors say for the first time in history that women in parts of South and Central America don't get pregnant for 2 years, that ought to set off alarm bells that have nothing to do with politics or partisanship. When American women are told for the first time in history to avoid certain parts of the United States because of these horrible birth defects that can be carried with this virus, it's just all these things together are just overwhelming. But you can't shut down because now we have the solutions. We can solve it.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees today. It's freezing here. Speaking of global warming, we need some global warming. It's freezing.
The most criticized scene in the movie An Inconvenient Truth was showing that the combination of sea level rise and storm surge would flood the 9/11 memorial site. And people said, what a terrible exaggeration.
Hurricane Sandy slammed into New York City last night, flooding the World Trade Center site.
Storms get stronger and more destructive. Watch the water splash off the city.
It's time to put America first. That includes a promise to cancel billions in climate change spending. Our plan will end the EPA.
This is our home.
You see the opposition has gained the mantle of power and is blocking everything that could help climate change, including getting out of the Paris Accords, which is devastating. Look, I did the math. You're younger than Bernie Sanders. You're younger than Joe Biden.
Here we go.
Younger than Joe Biden, younger than Hillary Clinton, and about the same age, maybe about a year older than Elizabeth Warren. So, and you already won an election. Can I just say, look, I don't know that anybody's ever asked you this, and I don't know if it's right to or not, but you didn't just win the popular vote. According to an entire recount of Florida, you won the Electoral College. So first of all, I'm going to ask a funny question. Do you concede that? Do you concede that you actually won the Electoral College as well?
Well, publicly, I have accepted the responsibility of not challenging the legitimacy of the outcome. But I hear what you're saying. I think people have by now understand what happened, and I wish the Supreme Court had seen it differently.
You're still young.
Yeah.
So
69 is the new 68.
So is there any chance that you think, well, look, the most effective way to do this is through government, and you get back in the saddle?
Well, this might be as good a place as any to no.
For a second
I joke in the movie that I am a recovering politician, and the longer I go without a relapse, the less likely one becomes. I'm grateful to have found other ways to serve the public interest, and it feels to me like I'm doing what I should be doing right now.
If a real progressive wins and says, I want you to be the anti-Rex Tillerson. The other guys picked the CEO of ExxonMobil that puts all this carbon into the air. I want you to come clean it up. And boy, as I see John Kerry in the movie, in the Paris Accords, I think that would be amazing for you to do. Is there a possibility that you would do that?
No, I would not do that. But you mentioned John Kerry. It's true. He did an amazing job as Secretary of State, and we went to the Senate on the same day. And I'll tell you, our friendship and partnership over the years was invaluable as we worked together in Paris. And I really admire the job he did. Did I mention the website, Cenk?
I don't think you did.
Inconvenientsequel.com. You can buy advance tickets. It opens in Los Angeles this Friday, tomorrow, and New York. And then a week from tomorrow, August 4th, it opens wide all across the country. And you got viewers around the world. This movie is going to be playing in countries around the world. And use your voice, use your vote, use your choices in life. Be a part of the solutions and go to see this movie, An Inconvenient Sequel, Truth to Power.
Yes. So the other thing is get involved. Climate Reality Project, and the first thing to do in getting involved is actually seeing what's going on. If you didn't see Inconvenient Truth, go back see Inconvenient Truth, and then go see Inconvenient Sequel, and it's stark.
Thank you.
Yes.
People come away hopeful. They come away hopeful, but also with an increased sense of urgency. Well, the persistent levels of denial among a smaller and smaller minority didn't occur in a vacuum. In Tennessee, there's an old saying: if you see a turtle on top of a fence post, you can be pretty sure it didn't get there by itself. And these levels of denial didn't occur by themselves. The large carbon polluters, the Koch brothers, ExxonMobil, and some others, have spent huge amounts of money, over $1 billion, in using the playbook that was written by the tobacco companies years ago. You'll remember when the doctors connected smoking cigarettes to lung cancer and other diseases of the lung and heart. The tobacco companies hired actors and dressed them up as doctors, put them in front of cameras to say in TV ads all over the airwaves, "Hi, I'm a doctor. You don't have to worry about any of these problems." And 100 million people died during the 40 years that they delayed the truth that was inconvenient for them. Well, the carbon polluters have hired the same PR firms. There's an amazing book called The Merchants of Doubt that tells this story, documents it thoroughly. They have used the same tactics, and they've used it also to divide Americans by labeling it kind of a partisan issue when it really isn't. It has nothing to do with partisanship. Losing coastal towns and cities all over the world is one of many of these problems. And of course then, I don't want to belabor this, but think about the Zika virus and the other tropical diseases that were never known in this country before. And yes, air travel's had something to do with spreading it, but the climate changes have changed the areas where these diseases take root and become endemic. And when doctors say for the first time in history that women in parts of South and Central America don't get pregnant for 2 years, that ought to set off alarm bells that have nothing to do with politics or partisanship. When American women are told for the first time in history to avoid certain parts of the United States because of these horrible birth defects that can be carried with this virus, it's just all these things together are just overwhelming. But you can't shut down because now we have the solutions. We can solve it.
It's supposed to be 70 degrees today. It's freezing here. Speaking of global warming, we need some global warming. It's freezing.
The most criticized scene in the movie An Inconvenient Truth was showing that the combination of sea level rise and storm surge would flood the 9/11 memorial site. And people said, what a terrible exaggeration.
Hurricane Sandy slammed into New York City last night, flooding the World Trade Center site.
Storms get stronger and more destructive. Watch the water splash off the city.
It's time to put America first. That includes a promise to cancel billions in climate change spending. Our plan will end the EPA.
This is our home.
You see the opposition has gained the mantle of power and is blocking everything that could help climate change, including getting out of the Paris Accords, which is devastating. Look, I did the math. You're younger than Bernie Sanders. You're younger than Joe Biden.
Here we go.
Younger than Joe Biden, younger than Hillary Clinton, and about the same age, maybe about a year older than Elizabeth Warren. So, and you already won an election. Can I just say, look, I don't know that anybody's ever asked you this, and I don't know if it's right to or not, but you didn't just win the popular vote. According to an entire recount of Florida, you won the Electoral College. So first of all, I'm gonna ask a funny question. Do you concede that? Do you concede that you actually won the Electoral College as well?
Well, publicly, I have accepted the responsibility of not challenging the legitimacy of the outcome, but I hear what you're saying. I think but they have tried to create this climate denial in order to squeeze more profits out of their business plans, which rely on being able to continue to use the sky as an open sewer for 110 million tons of man-made global warming pollution every day. The cumulative amount of man-made global warming pollution that's up there now traps as much extra heat energy in the atmosphere as would be released by 400,000 Hiroshima-class atomic bombs exploding every day. Now, it's a big planet, but that's an enormous amount of energy, and that's why the temperatures are going up. Most of that heat energy is going into the oceans, by the way, and that's disrupting the water cycle by loading a lot more water vapor coming off the oceans into the sky. The atmospheric rivers take it over the land, and that's why we have these so-called rain bombs now with these record downpours and mudslides and floods. And then between the downpours, the extra heat also makes the droughts start more quickly and go deeper and last longer. And of course, it's melting the ice, and that's why you have sunny day flooding in Miami and Galveston and Norfolk and Fort Lauderdale and Annapolis and worse still in Bangladesh and the Maldives, and I won't go on with the list. But we are largely a coastal species, and the threat of...
Most of the folks watching get it. Most of the American people get it. 60-70%, it's getting into that range. But there's still the holdouts who go, I don't get it. There's snow in the winter. So what is the most compelling evidence that you would present to them if you had 1 minute, 2 minutes with them to convince them that it's actually happening?
Well, every night on the TV news now is like a nature hike through the book of Revelation, and all you really need to do is to connect the dots, even if the mainstream media doesn't want to do it for you. The hottest year ever measured with instruments was last year. The second hottest was the year before that. The third hottest the year before that. It's really overwhelming now. And just in the last 7 years, the U.S. has had 11 once-in-a-thousand-year events. And that pattern is showing up all over the world. The scientists were right 10 years ago when they projected what was due for us. And because they were right, they even lowballed it a little bit, to tell you the truth, because they're culturally conservative. That should make us all pay careful attention to what they're saying would happen in the future if we did not get this under control.
One more thing on the skeptics. They'll say, I see the big storms, but come on, when I was a kid, we had storms too.
Yeah.
So you say connect the dots, but it's storms. We had storms. What do you mean connect the dots?
Yeah.